Mila Sokolov first heard the news at 3:30 in the morning, when the emergency channel that usually crackled with inconclusive predictions suddenly broadcast only silence. Then came the single sentence that would redraw every map on Earth. All open water has solidified. Mila was a glaciologist, and she had cataloged every variety of ice there was, from the blue bricks of Antarctic shelves to the slushy seasonal pans that squeaked under boot spikes. Yet she had never contemplated water turning to glass. Not frozen water, but a vitreous, transparent solid, as smooth as mirror finish and harder than diamond. By dawn she was on the roof of her research station above Reykjavik, squinting toward Faxaflói Bay. Where dark waves had slapped the harbor wall the night before, a sheet of crystal now lay flat as a cathedral floor, reflecting the salmon glow of the rising sun. No frost smoke curled off it, no cracking noises announced expansion. Boats hung in mid-motion beneath her, visible through the surface as though trapped in liquid amber. Masts and buoys floated within, but nothing moved. Nothing except, she would learn rapidly, the creatures themselves. Word spread of fish whose scales had refracted into kaleidoscopic prisms, of squid whose tentacles had grown faceted like chandeliers, of sharks glittering like steel-cut gem. The ocean had not simply frozen, it had alchemized, and its inhabitants were adapting in real time. Marine biologists scrambled for hypotheses while governments scrambled for explanations. Mila thought of her oldest friend, Dr. Isla Nomura, who had radioed her the previous afternoon from the deck of the research vessel Telemachus, half a day out of Bermuda. The last transmission, timed 20 minutes before the event, had been cheerful. Whale activity all around, humpbacks feeding, one huge blue at 90 meters. Wish you were here, Mills. No further contact. 14 hours later, a reconnaissance drone submitted footage. The Telemachus fused inside the torso of an enormous cetacean, both encased in newborn glass. The whale's body had become seamlessly translucent, like a titanic anatomical model. Its skeleton gleamed pearl white, its organs faintly opalescent. And there, framed by rib arches the size of telephone poles, was Isla Helmet. On, suit intact, suspended like a dragonfly in amber. She appeared to be shouting, fingers splayed against the inner surface of her face mask, but no air bubbles escaped. Instead, a halo of tiny sparking motes, bioluminescent, crystalline, hovered at her lips. Isla was alive, but for how long? When asked on the emergency call what specialized knowledge she could contribute, Mila answered, "Navigation and fracture dynamics on unknown ice surfaces." Though privately she added another credential, "I know how to reach her." The Telemachus lay 3,450 kilometers from Iceland. Commercial airspace was closed. Runways worldwide were choked with grounded fleets. Conventional ships were moot. But satellite images already showed hikers and adventurers splaying out across near-coastal glass, delighted as children on frozen ponds. If they could shuffle, she could skate. Mila assembled a kit borrowed partly from polar expeditions and partly from architectural demo crews. Endurance skates with tungsten edges, a battery-backed laser core used for glacier dating, a Sonolux hammer that produced pinpoint vibrations to assess density, a compressed gas thermal lance for localized melting, and a windsail rig on carbon poles for when coastal breezes align, and, tucked into her parka's breast pocket, a worn Polaroid of her and Isla during grad school, two young women knee-deep in a melt pool, laughing as if grief were a rumor that belonged exclusively to other generations. She set off under a sun so bright, the world resembled polished marble. It took one glide to learn the glass was frictionless, no micro-ridges, no grain. Her first push shot her a full 100 meters before her muscles understood how to brake. After an hour of trial, she found a rhythm. Long, low strokes, arms loose, each breath a puff of condensation that skated ahead in its own reflection. The vista beneath her feet was a panorama carved from light itself. Shoals of crystalline anchovy glittering like sequins, coral reefs turned to lattices that looked grown, not built, by patient artisans of frost, and dolphins whose hides refracted sky into rainbows. She camped inside the overturned hull of a yacht that had broken the surface when the water solidified. its keel poking into thin air like a question mark. By headlamp she logged surface temperatures, constant at 10 degrees Celsius, too warm for conventional ice. Hardness tests, Mohs 9, just shy of corundum, and resonance frequencies, eerily steady at 440 Hz, concert. But data slid off her as soon as she wrote it. The only constant living in her chest was Isla's stunned, upturned face. On the third evening, while calibrating her laser core, she felt the glass vibrate under her boots. She steadied, expecting aftershocks. Instead, a manta ray, wingspan of a fighter jet and now a filigree of living quartz, soared beneath her, brushing the underside of the surface. Its movement sent a thrumming chord through the sheet. The note aligned precisely with the 440 Hz frequency she'd logged. Mila knelt, palm against the glass, and sensed what scientists were already suspecting. The sea was no longer a separate environment. It had become an instrument, and its new inhabitants were learning to play it. She resumed skating by starlight, guided by the aurora ribboning low in the horizon. Whenever fatigue pressed her shoulders like wet sandbags, she repeated aloud the instructions she and Isla had shouted during their first climb together on Vatnajökull. 3 points of contact, no hero moves, trust the medium. Now the medium was immeasurable and entirely strange, but the mantra still worked. Near the mid-Atlantic ridge, fissures began to appear, hairline cracks 3 kilometers long, glowing faintly turquoise as if backlit. Mila tested one with her Sonolux hammer. The vibration returned, not the disquieting shriek of cracking ice, but a resonant hum, and the fissure sealed itself, knitting like healing skin. She imagined the ocean as a colossal living glass lung, repairing wounds even as it learned to breathe. On the 7th night, she encountered her first humans since departure. A band of Portuguese fishermen dragging weighted nets across the surface in hopes of snagging still edible species. The men hailed her, their faces maps of confusion and hunger. She shared protein bars, ran them through her thermal data, warned them that any incision deeper than a centimeter resealed within minutes. They showed her their nets. Knots had already fused into crystal, ropes stiff as rods. They said towns inland were rationing water because wells had calcified. The ocean's theft of liquidity was spreading upward into water tables and clouds. Mila skated on, harder, faster. When wind permitted, she hoisted her sail, turning herself into a one-woman ice schooner. She built speed until the air screamed in her ears, tears dragged sideways from her eyes. In drafts of rising mist she caught new shapes, trout whose fins were cut like stained-glass cathedral windows, and a hammerhead whose head had become an actual hammer. A mallet of flawless topaz. None of the creatures appeared distressed. They pulsed alongside her as if both scouting and escorting. 12 days in, Mila glimpsed black shapes on the horizon, cargo ships stuck in what looked like frozen surf. She consulted coordinates. Bermuda Tunnel. The Telemachus should be within 200 kilometers. She coaxed her exhausted legs into longer strokes. Her entire journey, she realized, was etched in fine scratches behind her blades, temporary, because self-healing glass would erase them before nightfall. Evidence of her resolve would bloom and vanish like breath on a window, leaving only the consequence of what she managed with Isla. The first sign was a shift in the color beneath her. Where once everything was the pale aquamarine of thin air captured in stone, it now deepened to cobalt, then midnight. She peered down and saw nothing but a void so bottomless it triggered a swell of vertigo. Then slowly shapes solidified. The flukes of a blue whale larger than any recorded, its flanks domed over a football field wide. The body was perfectly transparent, organs shimmering inside like jewels suspended in alembic fluid. Except there was no fluid, just the same solid continuum. Embedded within the whale's left lung was the Telemachus. Frozen at a starboard list, light still gleamed from portholes, probably powered by the vessel's solar redundancies. And inside the observation deck, a figure. Mila dropped to her knees. "Isla, I'm here." Her voice traveled nowhere. The glass swallowed sound instantly. But maybe vibrations would ripple. She anchored a tripod, mounted the laser core, programmed a bore path, a continuous hollow tunnel starting 30 meters ahead to avoid introducing fractures near her own standing point, slanting down through whale tissue, ending at the hull. The device was designed to take hours to drill a fist-sized core through 3 meters of glacier ice. Asking it to chew through 60 meters of near diamond sounded ridiculous. She armed it anyway. Light flared violet, a pencil-thin beam lanced downward. The glass glowed, liquefied, and resilified into a cylinder the core ejected like a railgun pellet. Mila shouted encouragement at the machine as though it were a chess player being blitzed. After 13 minutes, the laser overloaded. She swapped batteries, restarted. 2 hours. 3. By now, evening striations reddened the sky. The borehole extended maybe 10 meters, visible as a breathing scar of honeycomb. Progress, but not enough. Mila considered the thermal lance. The instructions recommended protective suits and water quench. She had neither anymore. Still, Isla waited. Mila unstrapped the lance, braced her boots. Ignition spat a jet of white flame. She pressed the tip to the wall of the bore, muscles trembling. The jet hissed, and glass sagged into molten teardrops that steamed before they hardened again. But the melded portion did not knit closed. Apparently, temperatures above 1,000 Celsius defeated the self-healing mechanism. She carved downward 0.5 meter, then killed the flame to rest. In the silence, she felt the whole whale vibrate, a bass throb not unlike a heart. Startled, she pressed her ear to the surface. Through solid glass, the sound was impossibly clear. A whale song, but no longer melancholy moan. It was structured, arrhythmic, a sequence of primes, 2 pulses, 3, 5, 7. She recognized a counting system, encoded in frequency, as though the whale, or whatever consciousness, pervaded this newborn ocean. "I am not your enemy," she whispered. "I am not your enemy," she whispered. "I just need my friend." She attacked the tunnel again, alternating laser and lance, sweat freezing as salt crystals on her collar. Each segment she cut, she filled with expandable ladder rungs, titanium rods, that ratcheted into place, preventing closure. Finally, her tunnel intersected the whale's bronchus. Immediately, a swirl of motes poured up the shaft, microscopic prisms that glowed with blue flame. Surrounding her glove, riding the heat thermal, they did not burn. Instead, they arranged into tidy lattices on her sleeve, as if willing to hitchhike. Down the shaft she descended, cautious on the ladder. Internal structures of the whale surrounded her like cathedral organs, a 3-dimensional stained glass labyrinth. She emerged inside the vessel's corridor, near the observation deck. Emergency LEDs still blinked. A soft alarm chimed, its battery probably on its last cycle. When she slid open the bulkhead, she found Isla floating mid-air in zero gravity that did not exist, her body held by networks of the same sapphire motes. Eyes open, breathing. The motes parted, lowering Isla gently to the floor. Mila yanked off her own helmet. Air, warm, scented of kelp and ozone. "Isla?" Isla's eyes focused. "You skated, yes. You absolute show-off?" They embraced. For 1 minute, the world's impossibilities quieted. Then Isla tugged Mila toward the windows. "Watch," she said. "They're learning from us." Outside, the whale's interior surfaces shimmered with scrolling symbols. Chemical diagrams, musical notation, braille dots. Everything Mila had scraped into her field notebooks along the journey was reproduced here, embellished now with additions, solutions to equations she'd left half-finished. Glaciology models upgraded with variables for light refraction instead of temperature. Sea creatures, or perhaps the ocean itself, was conversing by copying and completing data. "They copied my heart rate," Isla whispered. "Used it to synchronize their own circulatory patterns. That's how I stayed alive." "Then we need to answer back," Mila said. She rummaged for her pen and notebook. Primitive tools, perfectly legible. She wrote in block letters. "Can we leave without harming you?" She pressed the page to the glass wall. Instantly, mote swarms scanned it, glowing brighter. Symbols formed. "Yes." Mila exchanged incredulous glances with Isla. "That was the simple part," Isla said. "Now figure the exit." Between pulses of prime number song, the whale's chest began to ripple. Glass muscles flexed. A rupture line blossomed from the core tunnel, widening. Outside, the endless ocean surface cracked in fractal petals, each fissure glowing pearl, then amber. Then, oh! Mila felt the deck pitch. Water, true liquid water, whooshed inside the whale cavity, swirling about their ankles. The creature was undoing the event, at least locally, to allow them through. They hurried through corridors, retrieving data drives, stuffing clothes into dry bags. As they climbed the ladder, Mila felt a tug. The mote swarm gathered at her wrist, coalescing into a bracelet of interlinked tetrahedrons, a keepsake, or a tag she couldn't know. She left it. Consent seemed polite. At the surface, the rupture had become a gaping blowhole. Moonlight spilled in. So did the damp breath of an ocean returning to fluidity. Mila secured skates to her pack. No more would they glide tonight. She and Isla stepped onto a tongue of melting, softening glass that floated atop newborn waves. Behind them, the whale's bones refracted moonlight like a chandelier sinking into dusk. With a final roll of thunderous song, it descended, sealing its flesh as the last shards liquefied. The ocean around them was half water, half viscous slush, the transformation reversing, but not all at once. Mila inflated an emergency raft. When they were seated, Isla burst into laughter. High, wild, unstoppable. Mila joined, hysteria and relief boiling over. They floated under alien constellations, sky unchanged yet changed entirely, because now every star had a mirrored twin in the sea. Mila dipped her hand. The water clung to her skin in diamond drops before relaxing into normal saline. "What now?" Isla asked. Mila considered. "We tell the world the ocean spoke. We tell them we were rude guests but got forgiven. We tell them that change is survivable if you listen." Isla traced the tetrahedral bracelet. "And we find out if these stay souvenirs or become passports?" "Both," Mila said, feeling the raft rock on gentle waves. "Huh, because next time we cross, we won't come as rescuers. We'll come as neighbors." A faint chorus drifted up, a quilt of whale primes, manticords, anchovy chimes. Their raft, small as a heartbeat, turned east, and the newly melted tide carried them toward the uncertain brightness of morning.